Welcome back to Positive Connection Equine Training, where we focus on fear-free and science-based tactics while training our horses. For default neutral, we really only need two things. You can see here I have a little treat pouch. In it, I simply have some hay pellets. You can use any kind of hay pellets your horse likes, or even chopped hay. Anything forage-based is okay. I also have my clicker. I get these on Amazon pretty cheaply. I think they're like less than $1 a piece. And this is just to teach us how to mark the behavior. Here I have my pet yak Sadie. As you can see, we are in the middle of Kentucky winter. For anyone that knows, that means it is either frozen solid or we are just in a field of mud. So today we're in a field of mud, and my little baby horse had a fun time playing around and enjoying that. So not a big deal, but definitely had some fun. Yeah. We're here to talk a little bit more about default neutrals. And so all we really want from her at this point is that when I have food, I have anything going on, good, that she doesn't come in, right? And so we just want the same kind of energy, and that's okay. Yeah, good job. As you can kind of see, whenever you look at a young horse or a horse that's even just like foraging through grass, whatever, a lot of this, what we call muggy behavior, is really very, very natural for the horse because they evolved as grazers, right? So they can even determine what kinds of grass they're looking for, what kind of grass they're eating. And so it makes sense in their natural state of things that they're always kind of investigating with their muzzles, with their whiskers. Yeah. With all of these little nerves right here, you know, they're very sensitive. That's why we've banned whisker clipping in a lot of countries. And even as you can see on the ground, she's using them now. And so it's also very important to be able to identify that. So you can say, well, they're not really being bad. They're not being disrespectful. They're not doing anything that they think is harmful to us. They're simply following what they were evolved to do. And so the only thing that we're doing when we're training them through how to work with these food rewards is how to use that in a different context, right? So you're still getting what you think you're searching for, but you're not searching for it in that same way. Yeah. And so that's just where it's different. And that's also why if you have a horse that does this really well, you can play with their lips. You can do all these things, and they're not going to try and bite you. They're just going to have natural species appropriate behaviors. There should never really be any nipping, any mugging, anything like that. And if there is, you start to see that your horse is really frustrated. See if, if they have food anxiety or if they have any issues around the food that you're feeding. So I would definitely suggest anyone starting out, avoid grain, avoid any kind of like molasses, like great treats, and just stick with something like hay. For anyone just starting, this is pretty much the first thing that we do when we're training our horses with positive reinforcement. It's also a great time to start to teach them what the clicker means. And basically all that is when you hear that click, good, that's when they get their food. And so they start to associate that click with the reward, which also means that when they know, we don't have to be so quick, right? And so in pressure and release, and if we're doing without a marker, we have to reward really, really quickly, right? If we have a marker, that allows us to have more time in between where the horse still understands what they've done is the right thing. And so that's super, super handy. Good. If you're worried about having, reinforcements in hand, there's a couple different ways you can deal with it. The first, as you can see, I bring my reinforcement to her, right? And so never am I asking her like, oh, here's my food, here's my reward. Good girl. And she knows that even if I tempt her, we really shouldn't be doing that. So she's staying away, but the same thing, like most horses, good, are going to come over like, oh, I have food. And we want them to learn that we just feed out instead of coming into us. We can also, if we want, toss it on the ground. So if you have kind of a sand area, you don't want them to be foraging around in that, you can get one of those silicone dog bowls and just toss the reinforcement there. That way it can be compact on your side because it's collapsible, and then toss it down with the reinforcement when needed. And when you are training them, say you don't want to use it by hand, but you still want to charge the marker, what we'll do is we'll wait until they start to eat the reinforcement, and then we will do the click, specifically because we want them to learn that the click means the food, before we start to associate it with the right action. And so as they start to learn, we can click and then toss, and we don't have to click again. But as they're learning, as you're just starting to teach them what a marker means, that's a great rule of thumb, that you click when they eat, not before. Good. Good job. We also want to focus. You can kind of see her looking around, doing different things that we're reinforcing as she's standing straight ahead. What a lot of people will do, and you might see it here. Let's see if she does it. She's too smart for us. Where some horses will come into you and then move out, and that's their positive to get the treat, right? And we're like, oh yeah, they did good. They might have caught themselves coming into us, but then they went out. But in the horse's little brain, yeah, they're thinking, oh, to get the reward, I need to come in and then come out and wait. And so then that becomes the pattern, and it's very hard to get out of once you've started that. And so it's just easier as we start to start like that. If you're new too, you might have a horse that's constantly coming in. Totally fine. What we can do is protected contact, which basically means there's like a fence, or we put them in a stall with their head over. And so there's no way for them to kind of get in our space, and we can still reward what we want, right? So at no point should we be punishing them, pushing them away, getting all up in their space, telling them they're bad. We're just finding a moment that they do something good. We seek that out.
As you start to get better, you can start to generalize behaviors and do new things like moving around and using your pouch, keeping your hand in. And then at the end, just use a little jackpot, toss them on the ground. And so that way we can make sure that we're ending the session without them thinking that we're still in the session or wondering why all of a sudden they're not getting rewarded anymore. If this video was at all helpful to you, it would really help the channel and support me if you liked, commented, or subscribed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.